Each man is an island unto himself, but though a sea of difference may divide us, an entire world of commonality lies between us. James Rolseth. What do you admire most in the world? We usually have at least one thing that inspires awe in us. Nature, God, coffee, alcohol. The list is endless. The feeling I'm trying to get at is, of course, reverence, though perhaps not as we may commonly think of it. We typically think of reverence as connected with religion, and a lot of our media reflect and reinforce that frame. But all societies have values that they adopt as a result of their environment to help them survive. And because we're all also the same species, many societies have developed similar values in order to combat the problems we all encounter in all types of environments due to just our nature. The question of how do we organize ourselves to maximize our survival and happiness is at the heart of ethics. And ethics is at the heart of storytelling. And just as different societies can develop similar values, different types of stories can convey similar themes. The veteran classic Death Note and the auspicious newcomer My Hero Academia are seemingly totally different works with completely different tones opposed to each other. However, they may share the same message about the virtue of reverence. In Paul Woodruff's book on reverence, he talks about how we, in the modern age, have somewhat collectively lost the old virtue of reverence. Understanding why this is important, and in the author's opinion, why this should be reversed, requires understanding the virtue ethics which guide his critique of society. Virtue is a word that defines a system of ethics that is focused on shaping the character of a person. Virtue, in Woodruff's view, is not about fixed guidelines or traits, as is typically associated with virtue ethics. Rather, his view of virtue is as a commitment, that you will take the good traits in yourself that are found in every human being and hone them. Fundamentally, all virtues are based in feelings so that they can motivate us. Unlike his counterpart in rule-based ethics, which work best in specific environments and circumstance, such as the near impossibility of following certain base systems in wartime, virtues are meant to tackle problems of human nature which occur in all time and all places throughout our existence. Since they are meant to tackle issues inherent to our humanity, willpower and habit formation are necessary. As such, the need for the virtues to channel strong emotions. While there isn't much motivation in a rule, we often want to or wish we could imitate those we find virtuous. Indeed, this is how many thinkers throughout time, including Aristotle, thought virtue was passed on. While we're familiar with the typical virtues like courage, cleanliness, compassion, Woodruff counts reverence as another important one. And in Woodruff's view, virtues are important because without them, moral degradation runs rampant and society collapses. Reverence versus narcissism. Death Note, for example, uses Light's lack of reverence as his fatal flaw that ultimately leads to his downfall. As the YouTuber Aleczandxr pointed out in his video on the series, there is no true justice in Death Note, but that doesn't mean there aren't important lessons the series is trying to convey by looking at Light's downfall in detail, that we can see an even clearer cautionary tale of what lack of reverence can bring. Light was a tragic anti-villain who developed narcissistic personality disorder as a result of the Death Note's power. As Craig Malkin explained in his book, Rethinking Narcissism, the secret to recognizing and coping with a narcissist, narcissism blocks empathy, so even if one is capable of having it, they're reduced to near sociopathy. Dr. Craig also describes how narcissism originates in the need to feel special due to a fear of depending on others. As the sole person with the ultimate authority of life and death, it was natural that he would gain the idea that he couldn't depend on others, especially not to fix the world. Only he could do that. The only one with a similar power was the egoist to his narcissist. This is why, often, power corrupts, though it doesn't have to necessarily, as we'll see later. Indeed, one of the main duties of reverence is to prevent this. Reverence is not about abject humility. It's about recognizing limitations so that there's no overreaching catastrophe. It's important for anyone with authority over others to remember you're not a god and to listen to people. As Woodruff points out, the real world is worse than the world Kira created, arguably because we lack reverence in our lives. Wasteful invasions, deregulations of protection ranging from the economy to the environment, apathy towards politics, Such things can all be traced back to a self-importance that, if not unique to our society, can certainly be deadly. In his own way, Light brought that needed reverence back, although because he was just a man, failing to instill the virtue in himself led to his downfall. It was the false reverence of cult leaders, which, while effective at making some people happy, couldn't solidify long-lasting systemic changes. Even looking to the man who defeated him near, we see someone who has a healthy level of narcissism, and is the only one to pay special attention to the object that actually deserved reverence, the Death Note, and not Light himself. Light versus All Might. A good friend of the channel, Joe of Pause and Select fame, did a video on My Hero Academia where he basically explained how the concept of peace All Might stands for serves as somewhat of a meta-narrative for the series. It's about way more than just that, and I'm massively oversimplifying, so as per usual, we'd highly recommend you check out his video for yourself. Seriously, it's one of his best. However, the reason I bring it up is because it hits on something interesting about the world of My Hero Academia. Peace in the series works somewhat like an ideology, as Joe would say, universal pacifism. However, the reason for its creation and subsequent adoption throughout the world was not just because All Might and the others believed in it, but it served to unite them under a common cause, something higher than themselves. The symbol of peace, and with it the ideology of universal pacifism, was something All Might manufactured specifically for the purpose of being admired and revered by the society. Which should beg the question, why does it work? Light, in his own way, brought peace to his world like All Might did to his, and we can explore how their different ways of doing it and circumstances affected the result. Ultimately, their methods were different because one is a leader with comrades, while the other is a ruler with followers. And it's curious to see how their respective powers and environments form their ethics. Finding in you what's already right and making it that better, such as the ethos of virtue. It would stand to reason, then, that perhaps the difference between the two is of one of nature. But looking at the two material realities of the worlds, there are very important differences to point out. Light killed people as that was the only supernatural power he had. All Might never kills, as far as we know, and if so, rarely. Light was given his power by chance. All Might was chosen to have his power. Light is one of two people with a supernatural power, the other of which he controls. All Might is in a world filled with superpowered beings. Light works against the justice system. All Might works with the justice system. Light works in the shadows as a result. All Might is open and actively seeks out the public. Light used fear to inspire reverence as a god, and only for himself. All Might uses hope to inspire reverence, as he's only a mortal human. Also encourages it to be given to the other heroes and the concept of heroism. What is the opposite of reverence? Hubris. And ultimately, who succeeds in their goals between Light and All Might? Light is the parable of a man who won until he didn't. His hubris was the death of him, and after he was gone, there was no one left to rule through fear. We don't know exactly what life in My Hero Academia was like before All Might, but we do know one thing. We know that the crime rate was higher and things were worse than they are currently in the story. Without him, things are starting to collapse again. However, despite how things are going right now, there is still something Death Note didn't have: hope. If you liked that Nier's Team 1, or even if you rooted for and supported Kira, we here at the channel did, you can't say there was any real hope left in the end. Everything returned to the same status quo, which means it's just going to be crime and war, if not more than ever before, with the exception that there's now a Kira cult. The situation in Boku no Hero is quite different. There is a passing of the torch, there is a continuity, an understanding that what they revered can be attained again, and most importantly, by anybody. It will be hard, and evil will make gains, but there are already so many sparks of hope, with the new heroes emerging and current, all inspired by All Might. And this is because All Might instilled the virtue into future generations via the ideal of peace. All Might was the symbol, but symbols are replaceable. But it is the reverence we place into those ideas that make the magic truly happen. A society ruled by fear and hubris, what the villains of the series want to bring out, is no society at all. But just a collection of gangs and survivors. Narcissists, each with their own agendas, biases, and their own personal death notes. The YouTuber SocraTetris called the ideological battle between All Might and All for One a Hegelian dialectic, a stance we here at the channel have long since agreed with. He spoke about how the synthesis of their beliefs would be a world where ethics isn't localized to a single mortal pillar, yet everyone still works together in good faith to make a brighter future, where all active participants are engaged and invested in the outcome. A world with a revered symbol, a symbol of trust that says you can do it, one that believes in inherent virtue of us all.